Indiana football just won the college football playoff national championship, and there's a legitimate argument for them to be the best team ever.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, and it is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and the Portal. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Brian Smith, host of the Portal podcast in, I don't know, a warehouse, an apartment, a high-rise somewhere. I don't really know where Brian is right now. He seems to never stop moving in this day and age. And so thank you, Brian, for being with us. Thank you, audience, for being with us as well, as we have tons to go over on today's show. But want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, at the end of today's show, we're going to do kind of some college football playoff takeaways, plus start to look ahead to next season because it's never too early to do that. Brian has his top 5 teams for 2026. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, plus how Indiana won the national championship and why they can do it again. But Brian, I think there is an argument for this current Indiana football team that just won the national championship against Miami. They have a legitimate argument to be the greatest team of all time in the history of college football.
It's the only team to ever go 16-0, so that's a pretty important data point. I'm not trying to be mean, but they bludgeoned most teams.
Yeah.
Thank you, Illinois, to get that started. And it's a team that won in clutch moments when they didn't have their – like Fernando wasn't great Monday night. He missed some throws so bad that they couldn't even be picked. It was wild. That throw in the end zone later in the game, like he was behind the DB.
Yeah.
But then when he had to on the final touch, like he may play. It was an odd game in some ways because obviously Miami's offense was offensive and all that. But IU found ways to win different ways. Block punt. Sure, why not? That block punt won him the national championship.
Yep.
Didn't have that on my bingo card, but that's what great teams do. Indiana is historic. I don't know how you really grade it. I haven't had a chance from a totality standpoint. But, Jacob, tell me, what area do you go? Indiana wasn't very good at that. Name a spot.
You don't have one. You literally don't have one.
That's why you can put them in the – I would still probably say that early Miami team, 2001 or whatever, or 95 Nebraska. But Indiana doesn't fit in this year's group either, and they won the national title. So that's why it's so fascinating, because they took a bunch of kids from a lot of different places, and the blend was unbelievable. I'm going to be really interested to see how many guys not only get drafted off this team, Jacob, but how many stick.
Mm-hmm.
I bet they'll have a higher ranking of players that just make free agency and stick than anybody else.
You're saying stick in the league, like stick in the NFL.
Free agent guys that are like the second string tight end or linebacker or whatever, because they're coached so well. That's part of the equation that's very difficult. I'm going to bring up something that makes you want to cuss at me, but it's part of it. Haynes will probably be gone after next year as a head coach because he's the greatest head coach in candidate that got passed over that I've ever seen. It's hilarious. The OC at Miami is very good, and he made him look like a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
They had, 26 yards going into their final drive. Like, it was ridiculous. So they had so many points that you could go with and say, this is our reason for winning it.
Yeah.
I can't even pick which one's the top of the board.
And I think that's why I would put Indiana in that conversation as the greatest or one of the best to ever win a national championship. I know the 2019 LSU team gets thrown in there with Joe Burrow, but let's use that comparison for a second, Brian. That team was an NFL team. That was a NFL squad that was coached by Ed Orgeron, who got canned, a year or two later? That was a team that had Jamar Chase. It had Joe Burrow. It had dudes on the defense that are now playing on Sundays. Indiana didn't have that. Indiana built off of what they did last year. They got better in the offseason, and they just embarrassed most people that they played. They didn't embarrass Miami, and I didn't think they would, but they won, and they beat them, and they handled them and did it in untraditional ways. And the turnaround we continue to talk about for Indiana Curt Cignetti as a coach that nobody knew when he got hired in Bloomington, and the idea that Indiana beat every team in front of them with 3 stars on the roster, that to me takes over everything else. And on any team in history, there was no, I don't know. I just think that means more to me. I think it means more to the greatest of all time. And we'll never know whether Indiana and that LSU team or that Miami team or an Alabama team, if they were to get on the same field, who would win. We'll never know that answer. But I think this team and the story and the way they did it is why they're the best to ever do it.
They're probably the most unique at minimum, because I said this on multiple podcasts in the last 48 hours. They break every metric there is. Obviously, I'm a recruiting guy. They break every metric there is, because the vast majority of teams that win it, on like Bud Elliott's a friend of mine. He does the recruiting rankings thing that we all talk about. There's 60% or more 4- or 5-star players on the roster. Indiana
That's blue chip, right? Blue chip ratio. That's
Bud. I talked to Bud this past weekend at Battle Miami. Indiana had 7 guys.
It's crazy.
Indiana had less than 10% when you need 60. How does that work? Like, that metric doesn't matter. That's like playing 5-card stud with 3 cards.
Yeah.
And winning.
Yeah.
So,
and the competition around them wasn't bad either, right? This was not a down year for college football. No. This was a good season. Indiana beat good teams. Brian, they beat teams like Illinois and Penn State, who I know they didn't have a head coach, but they still had a bunch of talent, especially defensively. They beat Ohio State. They beat Alabama. They beat Oregon twice. And then they beat Miami, who maybe had the best defensive line in college football. Like, there are very few arguments that go against it other than, well, they didn't average 70 points a game like LSU did. Who cares? Who cares? You had the Heisman Trophy winner. You're going to have you have the best defensive coordinator in the country. You have the best current head coach in the country, and you went 16-0, something no other team has ever done in the history of the sport. Sounds like a good argument to me, Brian.
They remind me a lot of the late 70s to early 80s teams for Penn State that won a lot of games, a couple of titles.
Yeah.
They didn't always win pretty. I remember they beat Miami in the national title in 86. They had the Heisman winner, but they turned Miami over, ironically, because that's what Indiana just played, 6 times. The key to that game at the very end, ironically, was an interception. How ironic is that?
Yeah.
It's just how this works, man. Like, coaching, continuity, fit, culture, those words are beaten to death. Every coach sells that in recruiting and to transfer guys, but Indiana doesn't have to sell it, because they can just show the film and say, watch that.
Yeah, and that's why it's so special that they capped it off with a national championship, but it's also special to think about they may not be going anywhere, and Indiana has a formula, and they're going to stick to it. We talk about what that is, how they executed it so well, and what they'll do in the future right after this on this Locked On crossover of the Portal and Locked On Hoosiers. This Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and the Portal is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. Okay, you've got 2 games coming up this weekend, the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game. If you think the Patriots are going to get all after Jarrett Stidham and he's going to play a terrible game in his, 5th ever career start, you can jump on FanDuel and bet on certain things like that, and then use a profit boost on top of it to get a payout on the bets that you already like. So that's why right now is the best time to start. You can then apply those profit boosts, even bigger winnings, and when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best way to get in on the action all playoffs long, so visit FanDuel.com right now to get your NFL playoff profit boost every single game day. Welcome back into this crossover edition of Hoosiers and the Portal. He is Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast, part of our Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And Brian, you and I have talked about this first part of the topic here several times throughout this season on how Indiana and Curt Cignetti and this staff mastered the portal. You've talked a lot about how their scouting, their recruiting, their closing, and then their development of players is something unlike you've really ever seen in college football. Are you able to add to that at all now that they're national champions because of all of those things?
It's I don't know where to even begin. Like you said in the last segment, Indiana beat a ton of really good teams in different ways and all that. How they do it again wouldn't shock me because here's something I've had a lot of people ask just to kind of put it into perspective. They brought in 13 guys, if I'm right, from JMU first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was 8 they brought back. They find ways to adapt to what they have. And that's the end all be all. They adapt. Most coaching staffs hate that word. They don't even want to try.
Yeah.
So they get the right roster. They get the right players. I just don't think there's anything that you can compare it to, which is what I do. Makes this very frustrating, especially since it's my alma mater. I don't understand what they're doing and it's working. But like what they just did in the formula has never even been tried.
Yeah.
Let alone be successful in year 2. Name a sport you've seen anything like this. Even in baseball with free agency where you could flip it. With the Yankees money or the Dodgers money, maybe, if you've got a dominant starting pitcher. But that'd be about the only thing close I could throw at you.
Mm-hmm.
And in football, man, it's really hard to go quick.
Because there's so many players. I mean, there's so many positions. There's so many factors going on at one time.
Yeah, it's a bureaucracy. It's kind of like federal government as compared to civic government. Yeah. It's just a bigger animal to tackle. So, like all the things that they had to do, the only thing that I can say for sure that really helped them, and this is the new model that I've talked about, everybody keeps asking me on every crossover I do, if you take a job somewhere, because of Cignetti, you have to bring players with you in the meeting. Like you got to explain, basically you're going to rob the school you're at. It's kind of unfortunate, but if you don't believe me, go ask Iowa State how that's going for them with the Penn State maneuver.
Yeah.
Boy, that is, it's 20 plus guys. That's going to be rough next year in Ames. So you have to look at it from a perspective, or you got to bring in guys that can teach other players and hit the ground running. Surratt, Fisher, obviously you can't put a bow around how important Mendoza was, and he wasn't JMU, but holy cow. Mm-hmm. Everybody they bought in, like Black, like they had 2 running backs, I think that'll make rosters. They didn't complain. But you can't make this stuff up. It's off a computer screen. It's like AI for college football.
Yeah.
So
I've proposed a question with this though, Brian, to a couple of people, and it's an impossible question to answer, but I'll propose it to you anyway. This strategy, right? This formula for Indiana, which was we don't have to have the best of the best. We just want guys that we believe in, we trust, they're going to fit our system, they're going to play our style, they're going to buy in. It obviously worked in the short term, right? In 2 years, you turned it around and won a national championship. Is that something that can lead to long-term success? I mean, are we talking about Indiana being not a dynasty, because I think those are over in college football because of all of the portal and NIL and things, but is this something Indiana can live on for the next decade or however long Curt Cignetti coaches and be competitive and at the top and competing for national titles?
They can at least be in the hunt. They'll be in my top 5 preseason, and I think most people will. We'll talk about the portal a little bit here in a minute. But the key is like when they lose one of their coordinators or a quarterback coach or whatever, you got to replace them with somebody else you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, who would you trust more than Cignetti to make the right hire? I mean, he's certainly at the top 5 list. Him and Kirby, they don't miss often when they have a critical spot. Not that they're perfect, but like that's the biggest key. Name a team that has a better coordinator combination than Shanahan and Hand. There isn't one.
Well, most of them have been plucked. Most of them have been stolen, and they're head coaches now.
That's why I said earlier that Haynes being in Bloomington still is the biggest coup of the entire offseason. What are these people doing? It's so bad.
I just wish people like you would quit coming on my show and talking about my coordinators leaving. That's what I would like to stop. Spencer, our buddy Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football, he made a prediction that Bryant Haynes would be the next head coach at Clemson.
I'm not sure what the Clemson connection is, but that's interesting. I'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Whatever. I actually spoke to one of the Clemson coaches this past weekend, but They weren't talking about that, I can assure you. But
Yeah.
He's going to be somewhere more than likely. But if he's going to leave and you can't just replace him, they'll have somebody that fits in, that comes up the ladder, and they're replacing with an assistant or whatever that Cignetti knows, because he's been in college coaching for 35 years or whatever it is. He's always been a college lifer.
Yeah.
So I'm not real worried about it. And here's the only question I have. I brought up the JMU thing. You're no longer going to have that or Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
So the plug and play and everybody learning the system from the guys, that's over.
It's a good point.
That's a big piece.
Yeah.
If they fall off, that'll be the reason, in my opinion. Again, Mendoza, you're not going to replace. I get it.
Yeah.
But they had like Aiden Fisher calling the defense and telling everybody what to do. Pons and those guys. All these guys came over.
Yeah.
They're all gone. That'll be interesting.
Not only did they come over, they came back for another year, right? They came back to Indiana for another year, knowing that they had a team good enough to compete, and then they went and won a national championship. And that's when, you start looking through some of these names. That's a fascinating point that I hadn't really thought about. I mean, Indiana has a chance to bring back several guys off this team, but a lot of them were not starters. And the ones that were not at the top of the list of the starters, right? Indiana goes and gets Josh Hoover at the quarterback spot. You go and get a running back from Boston College. You had to go get a new wide receiver in Nick Marsh from Michigan State. You are bringing in a lot of new names, a lot of new guys, and how will they mesh with the current guys? But I trust Indiana. I trust Curt Cignetti. I trust this staff to get guys that they believe in, guys that they go through whatever voodoo process that they have to take the personality test for you to pass and be a part of this football team. I believe in that. And also think what's interesting that I've been telling people too, Brian, is Indiana just won a national championship with that formula with 3 and 4 stars. What happens when they start applying that formula, which they're already doing, with 4 and 5 stars? Josh Hoover's a big name. Nick Marsh is a big name. Like those guys, AJ Harris from Penn State, the DB, that's a big name. What happens with Indiana now going to get the big time superstars if they're winning titles with 3 stars?
Well, it just depends. The only problem you have potentially, and I can tell you this, is the guy that runs Locked On Seminoles, is your culture. Just make sure that you don't mess up the locker room. But you already noted they haven't done that yet. But if you let your ego get ahead, and we can fix this, kind of like the girl that thinks she can fix the guy that always cheats. That's, I can fix it. Yeah, be careful. Be careful. It only takes one moron to screw up your locker room. So as long as Indiana doesn't go down that path, and I'm reaching here, I think a lot of guys know they have to change a little bit if they want to play at Indiana. Yeah. Because they know the 4-star, 5-star thing with IU. They know the deal. So they're either buying into that or they're not even going to visit, let alone sign with the Hoosiers.
That's how Indiana did it. That's how they can continue to do it. We'll take a look ahead at college football next season. Brian has his top 5, plus just quick college football playoff takeaways from a bracket and a tournament. I think that ended up being pretty good. That's our final segment coming up right after this. All right, final segment on this Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and the portal. And quickly here, Brian, before we get to your top 5 teams for next season in college football, your thoughts, your grade on the college football playoff. Obviously, a lot of controversy going into it, as there is every single season. There were a couple of blowouts and several rematches, but how would you grade what we saw over the last 3 weeks of the college football playoff for this past season? What would you give it?
B minus. I mean, the beginning was so bad, you just can't get to an A.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm not trying to be mean, but there's look, and I know it's a lawsuit thing. As long as there are G6 teams guaranteed, it can't be an A for me. And I know that'll probably get a lot of boos. Yeah, those teams cannot compete at the line of scrimmage with SEC, Big Ten, Notre Dame. They just can't.
Nope.
And I hate that, but like I go to these camps. I go to these games. When I shake a 5-star defensive lineman's hand, you know what happens every single time, Jacob? I can't see my hand.
Yeah, you got to shake it off because it hurts.
Yeah. It's just different, man. Those kids don't go to Tulane. They don't. So, but otherwise, outside of the first round, it was really good. Indiana beating Oregon the way they did was probably the one surprise, because they outcoached them so badly, it was comical. And I didn't see that one coming. But otherwise, I think, we had some pretty good games. The Miami, Texas A&M game, the Miami Ole Miss game. Holy cow. The Miami, Indiana game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Georgia and Ole Miss, we had, first round stunk. It was pretty bad.
That's fair. Yeah.
But after that, I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think a B is probably solid. I mean, blowouts for sure, close games, dramatics, and then the championship game was good too. I'm glad that Indiana Miami ended up being a good national championship game. I'm also glad that, of course, Indiana capped it off and won the national title. But when I look ahead as we wrap up today's show, you have a top 5 already, way too early, right? That's what everybody calls it now. Way too early, top 5 for college football next season based off recruiting rankings, transfer portal, and what we know of names coming back to their current schools. What's your top 5 for next football season and why?
If you are an SEC fan, you will officially hate me right now. My top 5 goes as following. Number 1, I've got Ohio State. I trust in Jeremiah Smith. I think that they're the safest pick because Jeremiah's ticked off.
Yeah.
I know what Jeremiah looks like ticked off firsthand. That's not good for college football. If they fix their O-line, if they don't fix their O-line, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
But they know what their one problem is. And they went and spent a bunch of money on D linemen. 2, I've got Notre Dame. They killed it in the portal. They got Carr back. They finally got an elite wide receiver group. It will be gross. And their D-line will be top 5 in college football. Not really shocking. I'm going to put Indiana number 3,
Okay.
Georgia 4, Oregon 5. Like those aren't really surprising. Texas is the one I want to put in the top 5. But here's my problem. You tell me if I'm goofy with this. I'm not really sure what to make of Arch because when he's good, my God, he's good.
Yeah.
When he's not, I'm like, what the hell was that? They're the team that I don't know how to rank, and I will openly accept that. If you want to put them 1 to 5, go ahead.
Isn't that as much on Sark, though, as it is on Arch? Isn't that on Sark and the offensive staff there? Because he's so talented, and we knew the hype going in. He was never, ever, ever, Brian. He was never going to reach the expectations that were put on him. Now he's got a receiver 1 to throw to with Cam Coleman, so that's exciting for him. But I put that as much on Sark as I do on Arch, on his lack of development.
Look, their offensive scheme, it's not West Coast offense, Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy as some others. It's certainly not Lincoln Riley's, and it's really not Tennessee's like 3 read, like this 3 different routes kind of thing offense. Yeah. And he's just had some struggles when he plays teams that can run anything post snap. Now he's had a year to go through that. I'm going to, especially, I know Cam Coleman, and so do you. Like, if he can't find him, then he can't find. Then it's on him.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah, it's over. Yeah.
So
yeah,
they're the wild card, but those other ones, like the D line for Ohio State, Notre Dame, will be insane. Georgia, they'll have like 6 to 8 5-stars on defense next year. That's good, by the way. Oregon is the wild card in this. Here's a stat for you. I think they'll get a few back, but they've lost. You ready for this? 7 defensive linemen to the portal.
Oh, 7?
The only reason I put him in there is having Dante as a senior with those receivers. I think they're going to just kill it offensively.
Yeah.
The running back room is gross. They did lose Sadiq early. Oregon's the one I'm taking the biggest chance on. If you want to move them out, I understand it. But I know Dante. I trust him, and I think he'll get better. So that's probably the biggest. If you wanted to flip like Oregon and Texas, I get it. But like Indiana, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, I trust those staffs. Like,
yeah,
they've got D lines, they've got quarterbacks. Yeah, I think one of those 3 will win it next year.
I love it. I love the confidence in Indiana. I think so too. I think they should be up there. I think they should be respected. The fact that they have not, they haven't lost a game in over a year, and Cignetti's lost twice in his entire Indiana career. So, betting against them is just not a good idea for Indiana. So, very excited to see what they're able to do next year. We don't want to get there too quick, though, Brian. We are still celebrating an Indiana national championship right 100%. Now. Basketball season is not even a thing. Fans don't care, and they shouldn't care because of how bad it's going. And so I appreciate you hopping on, talking all things portal, talking about Indiana, and previewing shortly the upcoming season in college football. Make sure you check him out on the Portal Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Same thing with my show of Locked On Hoosiers. You can subscribe on YouTube, follow us on your audio podcasting platforms as well. We are back tomorrow for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.